Hey, this is Spencer from Little Kids Rock, and today Mary and I are going to be going over a bunch of songwriting tips that we used when we go into writing songs. So we're just gonna dive right into it. Okay, so one of my favorite songwriting tips, what I like to call flip a common phrase. What I do for that is I think of like sort of like a cliche thing that someone says, and then I like come up with the reverse of it or flip it in some way to and then like imagine what that would mean. So for I like wrote down a couple. So like if you are under the weather, it means you're sick. But what would it mean to be over the weather? So like over the weather would be like well like it's been raining for days and I'm done with this. And I think of that as almost being like the hook of a chorus, being like maybe like the punchline of something. So like, I've been waiting for days for the rain to get better, yada yada yada. I'm over the weather or something like that.
Yeah.
Call it a day. You could say call it a night. I like immediately I'm thinking like, oh, you could have a song where it's like all these strange things are happening over the course of a night that is like you're going out in the town, there's weird stuff happening, your friends are acting strange, there's a wild party, like all sorts of strange things that could be happening, and then like the punchline of the song could be like, I think it's time to call it a night. Better late than never. I've got better never than late, which I was thinking would be like a breakup song. Immediately my mind went to a breakup song, which is just
Sure.
like,
Yeah.
God, this person was a total jerk, like better to not deal with them at all
Yeah.
than that. Ooh, I like this one too. The last straw. You could just be like the first straw, where it's like a lot of these are like another one that I would see as a breakup song, which is like the first straw would be like, oh, I should have seen the signs from the beginning. Like I
Yeah.
should have noticed it from the first straw.
Yeah. Oh, that
Um,
is.
and I like that. Like one thing that I've noticed about pop music in general is that like a really great pop song takes something very familiar and makes it fresh. Like you never hear like a major radio hit that's unlike everything you've ever heard because it would be like it's too different to have such like mainstream appeal, but it can't be so much the same that it's boring. So there's this really fine craft to like writing a great pop song, and I love to like this is why I love pop music is it's like how does someone take something that's very that in some ways seems so similar to other music that's going on but manage to make it fresh. And so this is like a lyrical approach to that, which is like take a very cliched phrase, like your guess is as good as mine, and turn it into something that's slightly different. Your guess is as bad as mine.
I think that there's an acknowledgement in that is that like humans have been around for a really long time and a lot of our experiences are common.
Uh huh.
And there's like we don't need to pretend that we're the first people to be angry or fall in love or, like whatever. So I like that the idea of taking something and turning it on its head because it's sort of like exactly what you're saying. Like, yeah, we've all been through this, but it's still frustrating. And like, here's like a fresh, kind of fresh take.
So that's my first tip is to take a common phrase and flip it. So you could like Google like what are some common phrases, or just like when you're talking to people, if like a phrase catches your mind, and then just like, oh, what would happen if I flipped this phrase or changed it in one way, which I'm really excited to do.
So yeah, I guess my first tip is to start with titles and to make a lot of them. And to, if you are stuck with that, think about like every category of song, like love songs, songs that tell a story. And if you're like, oh, I don't even know what that means, like just go on your Spotify playlist and be like, oh, this song's about a party. Oh, okay. This song is about being with your best friend, all of that kind of stuff. And then be like, okay, what kind of titles could I take from those big picture ideas?
Uh-huh. Can you give me some examples? Like, what would that process look like?
You think about like a good song title, it either has to be really concise and catchy, or it has to purposefully be the opposite of that. Like, there's a song by jazz group that I really like called The Bad Plus. It's called Polly's Quick Temper Has Gotten Him Into a Few Jams. And so it's like, obviously you look at them and be like, that's a terrible song title, but
also it's really, like they're like a groove based band, right? And so like a few jams, there's like a pun in there.
There's a little pun happening. I'm just gonna spitball a bunch of things like burn it down, never again, best day ever, and so like some of these are gonna sound like, okay, well, they're a little bit like it's been done before.
Yeah.
So when I'm doing this, I normally try to like not filter until later. So I'll just start writing, and then I tend to have a lot of garbage ideas, and then some okay ones, and then some more garbage, and then like a few really good ones.
That's awesome. I was listening to a podcast once about writing. The advice given was to, if you're writing on a digital format, to change your like ink color, like your text color, to white, and just write. And so you can't see what you're writing, you're just going, and then afterwards, so you can't it forces you to you literally can't go back and edit stuff because you're not seeing it, so you don't have that distraction of oh, that's a bad idea, just get the ideas out. Yes, there's going to be terrible ones in there, but there's also going to be some gold. So just do that. So if you're writing those ideas out digitally, that might be a good way to expand upon that and make it so you literally cannot see those other ideas.
There's a author, Malcolm Gladwell, who I really like, and he talks about the idea of quantity leading to quality. So they did a study of 2 pottery classes, and one of them had 8 weeks to just make. They were supposed to make as many clay pots as possible, and the other and don't worry about how they turn out, just make them. You're going to be graded on the quantity that you make. And the other group, you are going to be graded on 1. So you have to really focus and work on this one product. And they found that the class that just made a lot of stuff made much better products by the end, because they had gone through the entire process and just failed a lot. I think about that a lot with songwriting. It's well, I need to write bad songs and I need to finish them so that I went through the whole process and then can look back at a completed thing and see what worked and what didn't. Okay, I'll do another hot tip. Just start writing. This is something that I've been actually doing a lot lately, because I've found that a lot of my normal processes have been kind of gunked up because life isn't normal. Mm-hmm. So the stuff that typically works just isn't. So I've been doing free writing, which is normally something that I don't do, where I'll just start writing about literally anything. And if I don't know what to write about, I will write about the first thing I see. So I would be the wall. The wall is gray. The wall is textured. It has, wood around it. All I'm seeing these days are walls, because I'm not really going outside much. And then I'll just stream of consciousness, let that go, move into the next subject. Mm-hmm. And it could be you can keep it as tangible as you want, focusing on your senses of sight, hearing, smell, touch, all of that stuff. Or you can get into emotional responses to things. And a lot of times it will weave into one another. And I try to, again, do that kind of without judgment. Mm-hmm. And then go back and just circle anything that's interesting. Mm. Are there any nice phrases that came out of it? Are there any ideas that are worth exploring? Definitely, I when I'm doing that, I do not at all worry about rhyming or anything into a song form. So it's just writing and seeing where my brain can go. And I know we've sort of talked about this before too in the context of songwriting, but pushing things to their natural conclusion too. If I'm talking about my dog and how my dog is the best, then I could be he's the best creature who's ever lived in the world, and then I could create some like mythology around that, idea, like really take it to an extreme. Like, it's not like he's a good dog. He is like the singular best dog of all time, and like probably was made by angels. Like all this stuff, like, because look at his paws, perfect. So like doing that kind of stuff when you're free writing too can, like, I find it to be fun. Yeah.
I like that. My next tip is pretty short. Do something that you normally do without distraction. So like maybe less appropriate for right now, but go for a walk without doing anything else. So if that's a limitation for someone, I'll give some other examples, because obviously not everyone can just freely walk outside at this point. But so often when I do a thing that is sort of like remedial or mindless or routine, I'll like have a podcast on, or I'll listen to music. I'll be like scrolling through Twitter or Instagram or something like that. And you're just kind of like, well, let me fill this time with something. And to go for a walk, or to like take a shower, or to like sit on the toilet, or to like cook dinner, like any of that stuff, but to do it without a thing in the background. And it just forces you to be alone with your thoughts. And I think like that's why some of like the joke is like, oh, you have your best ideas in the shower. It's like, yeah, because you have nothing to distract you. Like you're just going through the routine of like shampooing, washing, scrubbing yourself, like all that stuff. You're not thinking about what you're doing. And so you have that space to just like let your mind wander.
But I have a question about that.
Yes.
What would you say to somebody who is like putting themselves in a situation where they have nothing going on and total space is actually like a really uncomfortable, like mental place to be in? So you're like, well, but if I just lay on the ground for 20 minutes or whatever, like I'm going to get bored, and then I'm going to get like, my brain's just going to start like freaking out.
I mean, if it's like a mental health concern, like obviously like know yourself and know your own limitations, and everything that I'm suggesting has a giant asterisk next to it. That's like within your own levels of comfort and whatnot. I think just as with anything, like when you're starting any sort of practice, just like starting small with it, like even if it's just like 60 seconds, and then from there building up, and building up that time with it.
Yeah, I like the idea of almost even like setting a timer if you're gonna start, if this is like something that's really brand new to you.
Yeah.
Of being like, well, I'm gonna give myself 1 minute of uninterrupted time, and then maybe a week later that's 5 minutes or 10 minutes, depending on how that goes.
For sure. And then another thing that I have is to have a voice memo app on your phone, or to have like a piece of scrap paper or something, so that you can like throw those ideas down. Like I have so many, it's really funny to like go back to my first like initial sketches that are just like 30-second audio memos of things that are now complete songs. And it's like, I'm like humming half of the chorus with half of the words going like la da 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 da, and it's like I have one idea, but it's sort of going, and I have plenty of those memos that have just like gone nowhere, but I also have lots of those voice memos that have like turned into songs that I really like. So to always have that, and then to be able to just like hum them quietly to yourself, so you can return to those ideas, because often inspiration comes at times where you don't have the option of like writing it down or recording it at a high quality or anything like that.
I am almost exclusively most inspired at inconvenient times. Like, I think that that's just the way people's brains work.
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the lyrical ideas I had was to write a response to another song.
Okay.
Or it doesn't necessarily have to be another song. It could be a response to anything that you experience, like a video you watch or whatever. But I like songwriting response, because I think we all have songs that we hear that we're like, this is like someone is in my brain. And then we have songs where we're like, this is terrible. And like, this is a point of view I wish was not popular in the world. You know what I mean? Like, this is a famous song, and the lyrical content is upsetting
He
to
didn't
me.
consider her perspective at all.
So, like, I think a lot of great artists over time have done that, where they're like, oh, yeah, well, this is what was really happening the whole time. If you think a song is garbage, write a song that like you wish was like, that's like the opposite of that song, and the message that you like wish that you got to hear. I've talked about that a lot with both with my friends and with students, of just like, okay, tell me an artist you really don't like, and not in the context of like because we're going to make fun of that person or whatever, because everyone's, has different opinions, but like dig into why you don't like them. Is there something about their like image or their message that you find upsetting? And then like what message do you want to put into the world? And especially with like a lens around like hearing these sorts of messages on the radio is actually probably not good for me and my like my heart and mind, because it like makes certain assumptions about people like me, and I would rather people hear this message instead. So I think that's kind of a fun one.
That's awesome. My next one, I know you did this one a lot. I'm pretty sure one of your bands is almost entirely this, which is to imagine someone else's situation and to write a song from their perspective. A lot of songwriters build careers off of writing songs about like very personal experiences. Like Taylor Swift, her entire discography is like super personal songs. John Mayer writes a ton about like super personal songs. For some people, that works super well because it's like it just pulls this like they know exactly what they want to say. And for some people, it's really hard because either they don't think their experiences are worth talking about, or it's like so vulnerable to be like, but I don't want to share these experiences of mine. I don't want to put my heart on my sleeve like that.
But especially when you see artists like Taylor Swift getting a ton of judgment for
Oh,
doing that.
yeah,
I don't
exactly.
open myself up to that kind of criticism.
Yeah, exactly. And so one thing that I like to do is to imagine someone else's situation and to write a song from their perspective. Right now I'm working on a song where I'm imagining someone who is apart from like a very committed romantic partner that they have, and they can't see each other because of the quarantine.
Mm.
And like the situation that is like for them. So this could be like based off like a friend or a family member or someone that you know's experience. And if it is like strongly based off that, I would definitely recommend like before sharing and writing the song is to like seek their consent to write the song and let them know what's going on. I've gotten reasonable pushback from people that I care about who have been like, "Hey, you wrote that song about my experience and that's not your story to tell." And it didn't feel good. It felt like you sort of like stole an experience that I had and wrote about it, and it didn't. I don't think it represented it well. So I would definitely say if you're writing from like someone you know's personal experience, make sure that you're checking in with that person about it. Other than that, I would say it could be like if you hear a story in the news, or take fictional characters and write their stories. There are entire bands that are based around telling the stories of fictional characters. So if you have a really favorite fictional character and maybe on a TV show that you were watching and a situation is happening to them and you want to sort of put that whole thing into a song, or if you want to do it from a movie or something like that. And I know you do that. Do you want to talk a little bit about your approach to that?
Sure. Yeah, I'm really big on using any sort of pop culture to write. I've known a lot of people who like to write about it's like whoever inspires you, whether that's like an athlete, and a lot of times these people are fictional. I started a band with one of my good friends, and at the time we were roommates, and we would wake up on Saturday mornings and we would watch Adventure Time mostly. So we started one day he was like, I think it would be really cool to write a song about this character. And I was like, cool, do it. And so he started writing it, and then we kind of like made it into something together. And so we've written about, sometimes it really is like our take on a character and why we connect with them.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes it's like really trying to get inside of their head. The thing I really like about it for me is it allows me to kind of filter my experiences through another lens. Probably one of my favorite tunes that we've written in that band was about Memo from Adventure Time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all about Memo imagining what it's like to be a grown-up. And I like definitely put in some of my own experience about that, about like the things like I'm excited about or like worried about. And then like it seems like, you know, like one of the main lines is like, seems so much is left to the unknown when you're grown, which is definitely like me. It's being like, yeah, being an adult is great, but it's not what I perceived when I was younger of like, you're going to really understand everything about the world and how it works and why and all that stuff. So it allows me to like write really personal stuff through a filter without kind of like the danger of you were talking about is like, of I might misinterpret their experience, but it's a cartoon character, so like they're not going to be upset about it. It's not a real person. So I've really enjoyed that, and we've like had a really good time talking about like what stuff inspires us, and then like how we could tell that story in our own way. Mm-hmm. So basically, like if you are a person who's like, oh, today I'm going to binge watch all of whatever TV show.
Stranger Things.
Yeah, I'm going to binge watch all of Stranger Things. Like, have a notepad when you do that and just be like, wow, I'm just going to write down like 10 things about Hopper. Like, like 10 character traits. Like, I'm just like off the top of my head with that character, you could write about like how he's like a total marshmallow, and he's really, soft on the inside. You could write about how he changes over the course of the seasons.
Yeah.
You could write a song that like you think he would want to have playing in his truck as he's driving down the road.
Yeah.
Like anything like that. And the other thing too is I think for folks like myself who really do start to consider fictional characters to like almost be an important part of your life. Mm-hmm. Like this is like a way for me to almost, it's like the only way for me to respond to that relationship with like, like I grew up reading Harry Potter. It's really important to me. Like the characters have definitely influenced how I think about life.
Yeah.
So like, but they're not real. So like it's like a way for me to kind of like honor the way that they've influenced my life by like kind of returning to like say like what it is that they've done for me, which sounds very dramatic, but it is what it is.
One that I liked that I Googled that was something that apparently David Bowie did this a lot is...
the cut-ups.
Yeah, what I called it magnet poetry. So like a lot of people are familiar with like magnet poetry, which is like words that you have on your refrigerator and people will like make silly little poems from them. I think he would just take like bits of writing that he had done, whether it was like, it could be like you were saying, like the free write where you just like write. It could be the song titles thing. It could be like a diary entry that you wrote or something like that. And then just cut it up and cut up certain phrases and then just have those like scraps of paper on a table and just sort of like arrange them around and like mess around with it and see what sort of comes out of it.
Right. Yeah, I went to a museum exhibition of David Bowie memorabilia. It was really cool because they had a bunch of his cut-ups, and a lot of times it was his own writing, but sometimes it would be like books. Like I know he was really into Clockwork Orange, mm-hmm. which has like its own made-up language. So sometimes when people are like, his lyrics don't make any sense, you're like, well, yeah, they don't. They're not really supposed to. If you are stuck, have somebody unstick you. One thing that I found really helpful is that when I'm going to collaborate with someone, I have to know what I want from that experience. If a song is really personal to me, or I really know what it's about, I will tell that to the person. Be like, well, I don't really want to change this, this, or this, but I am stuck on this idea, and like be kind of specific.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that you can request of that person is that rather than giving you ideas, that they ask you questions.
Mm.
Like, what is this song about? And then like it will force you to explain it to somebody. Who is telling the story? What's the most important line of the song? How do you feel about writing it? How do you want the listener to feel? Because sometimes just having someone ask a lot of questions will lead you to more clarity without them being like, well, obviously this song's about this, so you should talk about this, this, and this. And sometimes I get a little like, oh, well, that's not really.
It almost sounds like songwriting therapy, where it's like no one is telling you what to do. They are guiding you mostly through questions to finding those answers within yourself.
Totally.
Which is like
Yeah.
like what therapists largely do is they don't tell their clients what to do or what to think. They
Yeah.
they guide their clients to understanding themselves better.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's a great point. And I think a good metaphor. There are times, though, particularly like at the beginning of a process, if I'm working with someone where I'm like, I want this to be 50-50, and that means that I need to be able to quickly let go of what I think something should be about. And you found a good songwriting partner when that balance feels right.
Mm-hmm.
Of like, yeah, they're letting some stuff go, I'm letting some stuff go, but when we get to the end of the process, we made something really cool.
Yeah.
That was like different than what was originally in either of our imaginations.
Mm-hmm. And that's really tricky because that requires so much trust in that other person.
True.
Yeah, I've definitely tried writing songs with people, like people that I otherwise really, really trust in like so many other elements of my life, and it just like hasn't worked out.
Right. Yeah, it often, I think it's a really specific kind of relationship.
Yeah.
It's different. It's different than even like a friendship or like a romantic relationship, because it's like you're working, but you're working on something that's potentially very personal.
Yeah.
So that's like it's a sweet spot that you don't find in many areas of your life unless you find yourself like in any kind of professional role that also is like kind of hitting that same zone. The last thing I had is like, if you are telling a personal story, or you want to tell a personal story, but you're not sure where to start, again, just like ask a lot of questions. And you can find I've found a lot of good prompts for this kind of stuff online.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd be like, what's the most funny or awkward or happy or sad you've ever felt? And write about the situation.
Yeah.
What's a typical day like for you? What would a perfect day be like? Who's somebody in your life who is just like awesome? That's sort of like I think a lot of typical sort of even creative writing, like for an English class or whatever kind of prompts. So you can just Google like writing prompts. I've also had a lot of fun kind of with like writing prompts in different styles. So there's like fantasy writing prompts. There are like writing prompts that have to do with sports or relationships or whatever. So if you're like, oh, I kind of want to write a song about being outside, you could be like outdoor writing prompts.
Yeah.
Kind of go with that.
Do you want to do some musical ones next time?
Yeah, that would be great.
All right, awesome. So let's wrap this up here for now, and we'll definitely do this from like how to get some songwriting inspiration musically next time. So viewers, stick around for that. Don't forget to smash that subscribe button.
You're not going to want to miss next week's episode.
Mary, thank you so much for sharing some of these ideas with me. I'm really excited to start applying some of these to my own songwriting.
Heck yeah, me too. I'm really inspired.
And thank you so much for watching our the daily lessons with Little Kids Rock, and we will catch you next time.
Yeah, you're awesome. Stay that way.